to give a bit of a follow-up to the whole Psystar debate. Points that I wanted to cover were that there is this staunch belief that Apple hardware sales would decline because of Leopard being licensed out beyond Apple hardware. I don't know where people found that reasoning in, because quite frankly, economically, when I look at it, we already have several PC vendors fighting over Windows licensing. They're all doing pretty well off. A lot of them have been around for a while. People's argument for that is usually said, well, they're going to buy the cheaper model. They're always going to buy the cheaper model. If that were the case, honestly, Apple would probably have far less market share than it does now. And we'd likely only have one PC vendor, the one who makes the cheapest PCs. So I know that statement's not true, because obviously empirical data basically shows we have multiple PC vendors. We have vendors that do nothing but assist people in building machines and so on and so forth. All of these companies are thriving. And like I said, the data is not showing that the cheapest PCs are the ones dominating the consumer markets. Apple does well. Its hardware sales have done extremely well, especially since they switched to Intel. And that was something that I was going to get at too, that it could lead into two different avenues, both supporting my argument. One could say that the sales from Apple when they switched to Intel went drastically up because of, one, it was able to run Windows, meaning that the Apple hardware had opened itself up to a new market demographic, because people were now able to really run more of their applications that they had already had previously, which would then behoove an argument to say, well, that means since Windows has that much of a market share and that much consumer dependence, the only way to combat that is to make more OS X dependence. The way to do that is to pervade OS X. The other avenue would be the sales went up when it switched to Intel because there was design changes. I think at that time there was the PowerBooks that were awesome, the G5, so on and so forth. But the trend has continued to go up, by the way. And I think the designs of Apple's hardware has always been bettering itself each time. So that could also be an argument that also supports my argument in saying, well, even if OS X is licensed out, people are buying Macs for the hardware. Meaning, in their minds, they're saying, well, I can run Windows on it, but you know what? The hardware is so kick-ass, I want to buy it. Again, so both of those avenues, whether you choose to pick the superior hardware route or the pervading of an OS route, both are supporting my argument. Now, again, all of this is speculative. I can go off of graphs. Anybody can go and look up these graphs for the Mac sales trends from the Intel switch, so on and so forth. But I do not see the reasoning that is made that would really even give some sort of empirical evidence to Apple losing hardware sales. Many cite the prior clones in the Apple failures back then. My argument to that is that I also left Apple around 95 when Windows 95 came out. I was just not pleased with where Apple was going. Apple really didn't have any direction. They were even hunting for new OSs, so on and so forth. The viability of Apple at that time was in question. I mean, they had brought in product line managers, people that would actually take Apple design motherboards from, I think, from quite a few designs down to 2 designs. And they were trying to streamline processes, so on and so forth. And I can't say that the clones basically caused Apple to lose money. I think the way the program was managed is what caused Apple to lose money. So, to back that up, and what a lot of people say about Steve Jobs is I went ahead and quoted Steve Jobs on this. This is Steve Jobs talking. And by the way, thank you to the user who did bring this up, because I had completely forgotten that Jobs actually did this. I think it was at a Macworld, or I forget which one this was. I think it was in November or something. Anyway, this is Steve Jobs. I went to the clone vendors and I said, guys, we're going to go broke doing this. And if we go down the shitter, the whole ecosystem will go down the shitter, and you won't be here either. So we got to fix this. And we're going to honor our existing licenses. Apple is a very honorable company. But you want to extend those licenses in two ways. One, you want it to cover something called Chirp. Now to pause, Chirp was a hardware standard for PowerPC architecture. IBM, Apple, and some other guys were involved in this. And it was a way to make hardware standards for like future builds, so on and so forth. I think I forget what it stands for. Common hardware, something or other. It's a hardware standard basically. And two, you want to cover portables. And we don't have to extend those licenses. Nothing in our original license ever said we did. So we would be glad to. We love to license software. We'd like to sell you our software. But you got to pay a fair price for it. Not an exorbitant price, just a fair percentage of the costs. If that doesn't say it right there, I don't know what else is. I think that is really the entire argument encapsulated. Steve Jobs himself talking. I mean, where else do you go from here? So we would be glad to. We would love to license software. We'd like to sell you our software, but you got to pay a fair price for it. That also tells me of what I was stating to begin with. The way that the clone programs were managed was deplorable. The vendors, I guess I'll continue, and we outlined what that was. We asked them to do this. I personally asked them to do this, and they basically told me to go pound sand. Being a man of perseverance, I asked 5 times over the next 3 weeks. Each time we were told to go pound sand. We finally make the decisions we have to make. So, again, I think that's the entire argument right there. Jobs has a cost or a mark in his mind, at least at this point in time, of what he was willing to agree upon to have Apple clones. That isn't saying that they don't want Apple clones. It's saying that there is a point where a compromise has to be made in order for there to be Apple clones. Will this happen today, and does Steve Jobs have the same opinion? I don't know. I am extraordinarily curious on why Apple says nothing. I am scanning the media for responses from Apple, but I think that Fred Video had a good comment. Perhaps Apple is doing a wait and see. And we shall see on where that goes. Okay, the other point that I've got to get out really fast, because I'm running short on time, is this argument that the OS X would become like Microsoft. No, it would not. People are not understanding when they're talking about this hardware to software relationship. It doesn't work the way of hardware to software. It's software to hardware. The software is the ultimate, the deciding point on what stipulates gets run, period. It's just like with Unix Solaris, Linux, all these other systems that are far more stable than Microsoft, especially within Solaris when they went to supporting x86 platforms. They don't support everything out there under the sun. That is Microsoft's philosophy. And they still disagree on this, both Jobs and Gates. Gates wants to be able to run on everything. Jobs, if it were licensed, were not allowed. It would just extend to a limited range, a little bit more. Basically, this part that would be outside of Apple hardware. It wouldn't be as pervasive as MS running on everything. It would just simply run on more than what is currently available. This whole thing about control of hardware, Apple would still maintain control. Solaris certainly maintains control. IBM maintains control. You guys are getting it backwards. That is Microsoft's philosophy, and they run with it. It's something that has actually been proven, at least market-wise, to be successful because they are the dominant force. But letting OS X get out there as it is does not mean it will be another Windows and run all over the place and have to worry about all this other stuff. So I got to leave it at that because I'm running out of time. Thanks for watching.